I've read 24 books this spring, and easily the best one was Murderbot Diaries Platform Decay. But then I also went and reread like half the Murderbot Diaries series, so those were also, um, I guess, tied for first. But that new release, flawless, perfect. I loved it. I say flawless, but I'm me. I always have nitpicks. It is a curse. I wish I didn't. But I'm here to talk about everything I got up to in the last 3 months over the spring, the best books I read. I've got quite a few to talk to you about. What I got up to writing wise, crafting wise. I've been doing knitting and crochet. So, Platform Decay, Murderbot Diaries Book 8. The Murderbot Diaries series is following this robot who has hacked its programming so it no longer has to follow orders, but at the beginning of the series, it's still following orders because it doesn't know what else to do with its life. And then the book series is about it breaking free and figuring out what to do with its life through the process of also making friends very slowly. And I love the books so much. Was there a world in which I didn't give the new Murderbot Diaries book 5 stars? I guess that world probably exists out there somewhere, but I'm so glad I'm not living in it. And that was actually one of my reading goals for the spring, was to read Platform Decay. So we can just cross that one off. Getting into another book that I had goaled to read in the spring, another new release, is Seek the Traitor's Son, and another highly anticipated book from an author that I've loved so many times. And yes, it hit the mark. Seek the Traitor's Son is the beginning of a new series, and it sits mostly in the sci-fi camp with some fantasy elements. The marketing team is trying to say that it's dystopian, but it isn't really. But it is multi-POV. You get, I think, 4 different regular perspectives. But mainly, you're following this girl who, at the beginning of the book, there's a prophecy that she is the chosen one who is probably going to save the world. But maybe the prophecy is wrong. And she goes through various stages of both accepting and rejecting this destiny. And throughout it all, she's also falling in love with our other protagonist. He's a soldier, and at the beginning of the book, he becomes her oath-sworn knight, her bodyguard. But things quickly go off the rails, and he doesn't spend a lot of this book as her bodyguard, but it is very angsty in his plotline, and I did have a lot of fun reading this book. It's so moody and slow-paced, and it's exactly what I love from Veronica Roth. Interesting world building on top of it all. And I also read Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter, so that is all 3 of the books I goaled to read read. Now, talking about some more of my top books of the spring, because I wanted to talk about so many of them. So number 1 is definitely Platform Decay. Number 2 is definitely Seek the Traitor's Son. Number 3 is harder to pick. I think it's got to go to Much Ado About Nada. So I'm getting really into Persuasion by Jane Austen. Tell you more about that later when I'm talking about my writing. And so I've been reading a lot of persuasion retellings. This one, Much Ado About Nada, is a very loose persuasion retelling. Not entirely faithful, but the changes it makes are the best. So you're following a woman named Nada. Honestly, when I first heard this title, I thought it was going to be something related to Shakespeare and Latino culture, but neither of those are true. It takes place in Canada, and most of our characters are Southeast Asian immigrants or the children of immigrants and Muslim. So it's very involved in that culture there. And I've read so many books by this author and highly recommend them, especially her retellings. Much Ado About Nada, the way I say, I was loving it for the first half. And then we got to this twist that was both a plot twist and a twisting of the knife of my torture and the character's angst. And then I was so obsessed with this book. So it's about Nada and Baz. And they have a complicated past relationship with layers and layers to it that becomes twisty. But the first layer you get to find out about is that she once bullied him when they were little kids. The second layer you get to find out about is they have a little bit of a romantic flirty relationship in the past, and the layers continue to evolve. But then they're thrown back together because his brother and her best friend are getting married. And then they have to start interacting with each other and really confronting how they left things. So I loved it. Obsessed with it. Other books that I also loved, to get some honorable mentions, Happy Place by Emily Henry. Slowly working my way through the Emily Henrys and having a great time. Anne of Avenue A, another persuasion retelling, recommended. And A Brother's Price, which is a quirky post-apocalyptic comedy where the population is almost all women. And then because of that, gender roles are very flipped. And you're from the perspective of this guy who's like trying to get married to a bunch of these crown princesses. And it made me laugh a lot of times. I'm definitely pursuing more from that author, as well as all of the authors on my top books list, of course. Now, let's make some goals on what books I'm going to read this summer. I was looking through what new releases were coming out this summer, and like nothing was catching my eye. My first goal is simple: an Emily Henry. There's two more Emily Henrys that I'm interested in eminently, which is Book Lovers and Funny Story. Vote in the comments which one I should read next. I haven't quite decided which one, but I'll get around to them both eventually, but one this summer. Next goal is this nonfiction that's got my eye called Jane Austen's Bookshelf, about the historical writers that might have inspired Jane Austen, and also rare book dealing. And it sounds very good, and I've heard glowing reviews. So I could add a lot more books, but right now I'm not really feeling like reading according to a to-do list. So I think we're just going to keep it at 2 for all the summer. I've also got feelings that like I want to read some more fan fiction and self-published books and things that are just like more casual, but also I'm really feeling like I just want to listen to audiobooks, which does not always coincide with what's available in fan fiction and self-published books because they don't obviously all have audiobooks. But I'm under this curse where it's getting harder and harder to read for pleasure. And I know, boo-hoo me, but here's the reason for it. I have turned my brain into too much of an editor. I'm always editing my own writing. And now when I'm reading a book with my eyes, I'm always like, I don't agree with that comma placement. I don't like that phrase and how it messes with the rhythm of this paragraph. And like things like that, things that would have never bothered me a few years ago. And now because I've written so much and edited so much, now whenever I'm reading a book with my eyes, I'm bothered. And some books and authors bother me a lot more than others. And it's not even necessarily things that are mistakes, but just things that are editorial differences. So I'm enjoying audiobooks a lot more than reading with my eyes nowadays because those misplaced commas, I don't even hear them on audio. Anyway, I know I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if there is a fix. I'm just going to keep reading a lot of audiobooks. And also books with my eyes because I do want to be challenged in some of my ideas about commas, etc. I think that's good for my writing. And let us move on to talking about writing because I do have some goals that I set at the beginning of spring for that. I've got 2 projects that I was working on this spring. One is However Improbable, which is a Sherlock Holmesian modern day detective, but it's also a paranormal romance. It's such a fun project, and I'm very much enjoying it. I had a goal to do 2 drafts, draft number 2 and draft number 3. I completed draft number 2, and I did start draft number 3, but I pivoted back to working to my other project that I was feeling even more enthused about at that point, which is Emma Wynne and Her Dragonair, a fantasy retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. So my goal for that was doing drafts 4, 5, and recording the audiobook, and guess what? I did it all. Check. So draft 3 for However Improbable, I guess I shouldn't have checked that off. I did start it, but I didn't finish it. But all the other ones I finished, which considering I knew from the beginning that these were pretty ambitious goals to do 4 drafts and recording an audiobook, I feel pretty good that I did 3 drafts and recording an audiobook and started a little bit of the last one. Currently, I'm working on 2 projects, so I'm going to set goals for both of them. We've got However Improbable and my Persuasion retelling. Given that for the last 2 seasons, both winter and spring, I completed about 4 drafts or 3 drafts of recording an audiobook, which takes about the same amount of time. I think that is a reasonable goal to set for the summer. Though, of course, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping for the stretch goal of doing more, but we'll see how things go. So for writing, I want to do at least 1 draft of However Improbable, which would be draft number 3. I'm really enjoying just working on this project slowly as breaks between my other books because However Improbable, it's a mystery and that takes a lot of brain power to try to write and try to place all the clues. And it's also dual perspective, which also takes a lot of brain power. So I'm loving it. It takes a lot out of me. After doing 1 draft of that, I'm like, I need a break. Let's pivot to Jane Austen retellings, which are challenging in a different way, but not so mentally taxing. So doing one draft, however improbable, and then after draft 3 is done, it'll be probably about ready to get it sent out to beta readers, which will be very fun. And then for my other project, I want to do draft 1, 2, and 3 of my Persuasion retelling. I'm still in the outlining stage of that currently. I've got a lot of ideas of where I want to take the plot of Persuasion, mixing it in with dragons, having crossover characters with my other books. It's a blast. I would tell you a fun fact about the Persuasion retelling and the ways I want to take it, but a lot of my current ideas of where to take the Persuasion retelling would spoil my other Jane Austen retellings. So instead, I'll tell you a fun fact about However Improbable. When I started out However Improbable, I wasn't sure what tense I wanted it to be in. First person, third person, present, or past. And my first draft was a mess because I decided I would just play around and experiment. So for one chapter, I'd write in first person present, and the next chapter, I'd write in third person past, etc. And then by the end, here's what I landed on. You're going to think it's crazy, but it totally works. And you're going to be so impressed when you read it. So it's dual perspective. We've got our Sherlock Holmesian character whose name is Ingrid Holmes. She's a detective. We have our John Watson-y character whose name is Wizellen, and he's a demon. So Ingrid's perspective is in first person present. It's very in the moment. Here is what is happening to me right now. Wizellen's perspective is in first person past. Here is the tale of my misadventures with Ingrid, etc. He's very reflective, much like the original Sherlock Holmes novels written by John Watson, also sometimes in a reflective tone. Kind of depends on the story how reflective it gets. But I wanted to maintain that reflection tone, but I also wanted things to be a little bit more like present tense actiony when they're doing actiony things. So I've decided to do both. And also the tense separation really also helps with the not being confused about whose perspective you're in, which can become a problem when you've got dual perspective and they're both first person. But I'm really liking how it's turning out. So I hope there's some nerd in my audience who's really excited about that adventurous and experimental tense switching I'm doing. I'm having a lot of fun anyway. And now we come to the crafting portion of the video, which is also very fun to share. Going back to my goals, I've got finish my baby's cardigan. And we can totally cross that right off. And I'll show it off to you. Here is it all buttoned up. Usually the sleeves are pretty rolled up. I purposefully made them way too long so that he has lots of room to grow into this. He doesn't seem to dislike wearing it, but also has no particular passion for wearing it. So the back panel with this X is crocheted. And the front panel with these swirlies is also crocheted. And then the sleeves are knitted with my first cable, which is very fun. Now, 3 months ago at the beginning of spring, I set another goal, which is to make myself a cardigan because I realized I had never made something for me. I'd made something for lots of other people in my life, but I'd never made something for me. And so I started making a cardigan for myself. I had every intention of making something for me. But then my very cute niece saw me making that cardigan and she saw the new cardigan I just made for my baby boy and she was very wanting one of her own. So I stopped making a cardigan for me and I made her one. Here's a picture. I'm incredibly happy with how it turned out. And then after making that cardigan, I was feeling like I needed a break from big projects. So I started making myself a hat. Here's how it turned out. I don't have it in my possession right now because, well, my mom really wanted it. My mom was looking at it with great admiration and longing. And also it was Mother's Day. So the hat went to my mother. And I didn't quite realize until I was staring in the face of my goal to make more of myself things that like I've completely failed to make myself anything yet again. And it's been like a year and a half of knitting and crochet and I still haven't made anything for me. And I'm beginning to think it's an actual problem. So I think for the summer, here's going to be my goal. Be selfish. That's going to be my goal. I don't want to make anything for anyone. Summer is time to make things for me. Unless I'm really feeling like making something for someone else. But no, I think I'm just going to draw this hard line in the sand. I want to make things for me, for being selfish. Because I want cool stuff. And I'm allowed to make things for my house that will be shared by my household. But no more giving away gifts, at least for the summer. I'll return to it later. But I'm really feeling jealous of all of these people that I've given things to, and I want things for myself. Now, after I made that hat and that cardigan, I was feeling like making some stuffed animals, which are generally for my son and my nieces because they're the ones who love playing with stuffed animals. But let me show off some of these cool stuffed animals to you, okay? Okay. My little toddler, he's actually a toddler now, no longer a baby because he's walking. Anyway, he's obsessed with balls right now. So I thought, wouldn't it be the cutest thing if I made him a little armadillo stuffed animal? And this armadillo indeed becomes a ball. It's got this little magnet clasp. And voila. It's not the roundest ball, but it does roll. And my baby does have fun playing with it. My toddler. He's a toddler now. It's very exciting. Anyway, so that's our little armadillo. And then after making this, I was very excited to make more stuffed animals. And also, I had more of these 3 colors of yarn, the orange, the teal, and the blue. So I made some more stuffed animals. I made a bat. This one is a puppet. It's got some rings on the bottom, so I can use it to flap around. I made this dragon that's like a continuous spiral, so it's just kind of like for fun fidgeting. You can go around and around and around the spiral. And I'm quite proud of what I did with the face, just like sewing in the other yarns to try to make it look friendly and happy. And I also made this duck. And I've got a toddler niece, and she is so cute because she'll come up to this and go quack, 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 quack. Do you see why I keep making things for other people? It just makes me so happy to see them enjoy the things I make. But I'm beginning to think it's a problem because I've never made something for myself, which doesn't seem entirely healthy at this point. So, in summary, my summer goals are read A. Emily Henry, read Jane Austen's bookshelf, do 4 drafts of books, and be selfish in my crafting. So I'm excited to check in at like the end of August with these goals and see how I did. Please let me know, how did your spring go? What were your favorite books? What were your favorite projects? I'm really curious, especially about the favorite books, especially if they have good audiobooks. Or alternatively, if you think the author does good comma placement, but only in my judgment. I know it's a problem. I just don't know how to fix it. Thanks for watching, and I hope your reading is fantastic.